The high-pitched, rhythmic beep of the IV monitor was completely drowned out by the sound of my husband dropping divorce papers onto my sterile hospital tray. I was strapped to a bed in the intensive care unit. The neurospecialist had just left the room after documenting a severe concussion with minor intracranial bleeding. My husband of 9 years didn't ask the medical staff if the hemorrhaging in my brain had stopped. He didn't touch my hand. He leaned over the metal bed rails, checked his reflection in the room's tinted window, and adjusted his watch. "I've spoken to your neurospecialist, Sarah," he said, smoothing his designer cuffs with absolute detachment. "You're going to need years of cognitive therapy. The brownstone has too many stairs. It's not safe for you anymore. Ashley is going to help me pack your things so you can transition to a care facility. It's just what's best for both of us right now." Ashley was his 24-year-old publicist. He wanted me out of the Boston brownstone before his European book tour began. He wanted to move her in. When the man you spent a decade turning into a millionaire leaves you bleeding in an ICU to move in his mistress, you have two choices. Let him take the empire, or legally detonate it while he's standing inside. He thought the concussion had erased my leverage. He forgot I held the digital keys to his entire identity. I stared at his perfect, fluid signature on the bottom of the divorce decree. The exact same signature I had forged on exactly 400,000 words of his best-selling manuscripts over the last 3 years. 400,000 words. I didn't just fund his career with my grandmother's $250,000 inheritance. I became the unseen architect of his genius. I drank cold coffee at 4 a.m. fixing his catastrophic plot holes, while he soaked in the applause at $1,500 a plate Soho House dinners. If you've ever given everything to someone who was secretly taking you apart, subscribe, because I'm about to show you exactly how to take your power back. He fell in love with the applause. I was just the ghost providing the script. I remember the exact night we signed the contracts for the second book. It was raining. The clock on the library wall said 11:14 p.m. He insisted we put all the intellectual property and the home deed into a blind trust. He claimed it was a standard tax shield for high-earning creatives. He fought to have his name as the sole public face of the literary LLC attached to that trust. I let him do it. I didn't care about the cameras. I cared about the work. I don't know what time it is where you're listening from, or if you've ever dealt with this exact kind of toxic arrogance, but let me know in the comments. Because what he did next defies logic. He assumed that because I was quiet, I was blind. Silence. He walked out of the ICU room, leaving the scent of his expensive cologne mixed with the sterile smell of hospital antiseptic. The door clicked shut. My heart rate monitor spiked to 118 beats per minute. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. Adrenaline is an excellent focus agent. I waited until the floor nurse finished her 8 p.m. rounds. The corridor lights dimmed. I reached for my iPad on the metal bedside table. I pushed the automated morphine drip button away from my left hand. Numbness is a liability. I needed the pain to keep my mind sharp. I opened the Safari browser and typed in the internal IP address for the shared publisher financial portal. I didn't use the standard password. I bypassed the dual-factor authentication using the master recovery token I had integrated into the gallery system 3 years ago. I opened the third quarter ledger. The main royalty account was empty. The projected advance from his upcoming European release was gone. I opened the raw ACH transfer logs. I studied the metadata strings on the screen. The funds hadn't been delayed by the New York bank. They had been systematically redirected via a routing number assigned to an offshore shell entity in the Cayman Islands. The total transfer amount was exactly $450,000. I pulled the corporate registration filing for that shell entity. He made one critical oversight. He had registered the company using a business email address I created for him. The primary manager listed on the corporate charter was Ashley Vance. He was using my intellectual property to fund the woman helping him pack my clothes. My pulse stabilized. The internal panic gave way to habit. I started documenting everything. I plugged my encrypted legal drive into the iPad's USB-C port. I accessed the secure cloud backups where the original manuscript files for all 4 bestsellers were stored. He thought his name on the cover was an ironclad title. He forgot how digital footprints work. Scrivener software logs every single keystroke, every deleted sentence, and every local machine ID into an encrypted metadata file hidden within the package contents. I extracted the raw XML session logs. The data showed that 98% of the text was entered from my specific Mac Pro hardware ID. His user profile had only accessed the documents twice. Both times were to download the final PDFs for his public readings. I compiled the XML sheets into a single forensic audit file. Then, I opened the Articles of Incorporation for the blind trust. He had never read the operating agreement. He had simply signed where his accountant told him to sign. Section 4, Paragraph B. The language was explicit. The public face of the LLC was a dummy position. The legal control, the right to revoke copyright licenses, and the sole ownership of the Boston brownstone belonged exclusively to the designated trustee. Me. I picked up the heavy plastic pen from the bedside table. I signed the divorce papers he had dropped on my tray. I left the quitclaim deed for the brownstone entirely blank. I opened my text thread with him. I needed to keep him in a state of absolute overconfidence for the next 72 hours. I typed a single message. "You're right. I'm too weak to fight this. Take the tour. I'll be gone when you get back." I hit send. The delivery confirmation turned blue immediately. I didn't wait for his response. I turned off the phone and handed the iPad to my federal IP attorney who had just walked through the ICU doors. Before I show you the exact document that destroyed his entire empire, make sure you hit subscribe. You do not want to miss how this ends. Always check the metadata. If you're taking notes for your own life while listening to this, hit the like button. For the next 72 hours, I remained completely invisible. Silence. I didn't answer his calls. I didn't look at the media alerts for his book launch. I sat in a private room at a diagnostic clinic downtown, watching my attorney file the ex parte emergency injunction in federal court. We didn't contact his publisher. We didn't file a complaint with his literary agency. We bypassed the civil court system entirely. A federal judge reviewed the Scrivener keystroke logs and the Blind Trust Incorporation papers at 9 a.m. on a Friday. The injunction was granted within 20 minutes. Which brings us to the launch party in Manhattan. The venue was an upscale gallery space in Chelsea. The room was packed with 500 literary critics, media executives, and high society donors. Another 50,000 people were watching the official live stream. I watched the video feed from a tablet propped up on my desk in the Boston brownstone. I had been discharged that morning. My head still throbbed, but the house was completely empty. The live stream was muted. I didn't need to hear his voice. On the screen, my husband stood on an elevated stage under a massive digital banner bearing his name. He was holding a glass of Cristal champagne. Ashley was standing 3 feet behind him, smiling for the photographers from the New York Times. He looked untouchable. He took the microphone and began his introductory speech. At the exact same moment, 2 plainclothes United States Marshals walked through the main security entrance of the venue. They weren't there to make a scene. They walked directly to the stage manager's station. I watched the screen as the CEO of the publishing house suddenly froze. An assistant had handed him an emergency notification from their corporate legal department. The CEO read the paper. The color drained from his face. He walked onto the stage while my husband was mid-sentence. He didn't tap him on the shoulder. He didn't apologize. He stepped between my husband and the microphone, took the glass of champagne from his hand, and whispered 4 words into his ear. I watched my husband's facial muscles go completely flaccid. His eyes widened, tracking toward the wings of the stage where the federal marshals were standing with the seizure orders. His hand began to shake so violently that he dropped the wireless microphone container. The black plastic shattered on the stage floor. The live stream screen cut instantly to a generic corporate logo. Then, gray static. My phone vibrated against the mahogany wood of my desk. A single email from my legal team. The federal injunction had been served. The publisher had legally pulled the book from distribution worldwide to avoid a multi-million-dollar secondary infringement lawsuit. Ashley was seen on an attendee's private video feed leaving through the service exit 5 minutes later. She left him standing on that stage, alone. By sunrise, the transformation was complete. The literary LLC was frozen. The copyright licenses for all 4 bestsellers were legally reverted to the trust. His pen name was a trademark owned entirely by me. He couldn't even sign an autograph using the identity I had built for him without violating a federal court order. The locks on the Boston brownstone were changed by a commercial locksmith at 8 a.m. 3 weeks later, I am sitting in the library. The room is completely quiet except for the sound of the rain against the glass windows. I have a cup of hot black tea next to my keyboard. Let me know in the comments, how long does it usually take for a narcissist to reveal they only love you for what you can provide? Have you ever discovered hidden financial accounts in a relationship? Tell me how you found out. I open a new file on my laptop. The author name at the top of the page is my own. When you finally stop pouring your brilliance into an empty vessel, you realize something. You were never the ghost. They were. Join me next week for another case study in corporate-level revenge. A chief financial officer discovers her husband secretly mortgaged their primary residence to fund his brother's fraudulent tech startup. She audits the company's cap table and uses a hidden debt equity conversion clause to legally seize a 51% controlling interest 72 hours before the federal audit. She fired him from his own boardroom on a Monday morning. Julian's medical license is gone. His name has been scraped off the glass. The clinic is currently listed for commercial sale.